Hi everyone, this is the last pre-departure information session, and it will largely deal with what to pack, what to put in the suitcase, what to leave at home, and cover a few other last-minute details, kind of helping you picture the trip and what it will be like. I recommend listening to this video and looking over the slides, particularly in the last couple weeks right before your trip, when that'll be the time when you'll be thinking about these details, making sure you have everything, crossing off the list, and figuring out what you might need to still run out and buy, and those kind of things. Feel free to watch it beforehand as well, but review it maybe right before you leave. The first few slides in this presentation have various lists of what you should bring, suggestions of some things you may consider bringing but aren't mandatory or necessary for everyone, and a few things not to bring. There is a little bit of redundancy in some of the lists, some overlap, some things are repeated more than once, but overall this should give you a good overview to look at when considering what to pack. My general recommendation is pack less rather than more. It's very easy to come with a huge stuffed suitcase, and then we find a lot of souvenirs we want to bring back, gifts for family. We receive maybe gifts from the kids or Vietnamese coaches, and at the end of camp we just don't know where to fit it in that suitcase, and it's over the weight limit, which can be quite expensive. And I usually find a good portion of what I brought along remains untouched at the end of my time in the bottom of my suitcase, and I always think, man, I could have brought less and it would have been a lot easier to lug that around and make it less stressful to fit everything when I came back. So in general, if you're in doubt about a certain object or a certain amount of clothes, I would opt to leave those rather than bring them. And most things are readily available in Vietnam. If you do need an extra t-shirt or two, that's very easy to go find. If you didn't bring an alarm clock, you forgot that's easy to get. Pretty much any item that you would find in the States is pretty easy to find in Vietnam, and usually at a cheaper price. There are, of course, a few things that I definitely recommend bringing, and I'll go over some of those here. I will not go into every detail on all these slides. I'll maybe hit some of the highlights, but definitely read through them, download the slides, read through them on your own, and go over them right before in the days before you depart for Vietnam. Some of the main things that I recommend bringing that I would not leave at home are bug spray, preferably with DEET in it. That is not easily to find in Vietnam, and there are insects, and it will be much more comfortable if we are able to keep them away. And though it is a small risk, there is a potential of various diseases being transmitted by mosquito bite as well. So that's an added reason to bring plenty of bug spray to use, especially in the evenings. Sunscreen is available in Vietnam, but I think it's just easier. You will need sunscreen. Definitely include that. Pack a bottle of that to bring with you. And we also recommend bringing an electrolyte powder, such as powdered Gatorade. We are out in the sun. We're doing a sports camp. We're sweating a lot. The sun is intense. And one of our biggest health risks is dehydration. Of course, we want to prevent it becoming serious, and it certainly is not a major problem if we drink plenty. But while we want to replenish our fluids, we also would want to make sure we replace the electrolytes that we're losing through sweat. So something like Gatorade powder can be pretty good to help us feeling healthy and energetic throughout the camp. We also recommend bringing some snacks. We'll be eating Vietnamese food every meal, except possibly a few weekends. Maybe there will be a few options of some Western-style entrees. But for the most part, it's local Vietnamese food, which is really good, but it's also very different than what most of us are used to. And so there's certainly going to be times when you'll just have that craving for whatever that thing is, that American comfort food. So something like we see here, peanut butter, power bars, granola bars, maybe there are a few other things, or a favorite cereal or something. That could be something to stick in, something that you would consume as well, which would leave space in your suitcase later to bring back some of those extras that I was talking about. Particularly for guys who have a higher metabolism, especially student athletes in general, you definitely want to keep up your body weight and your energy, and you consume a lot more than the average Vietnamese does in a regular day. And our diets tend to be fairly carbohydrate heavy, a lot of rice noodles, and there is meat, but it's more to add flavor. There's not a big steak or 3 hamburgers like some football player, for example, might be used to eating. So for guys particularly, maybe bringing some protein powder as well might be something that would be useful in maintaining their body weight. In terms of electrical devices, a lot of people may bring an iPhone, an iPod, a laptop. Bear in mind that there is a risk of damage and theft while traveling. I don't want to say it's a non-existent threat. It's certainly there. We don't have to be paranoid about it. But you might want to evaluate whether or not you really do need that expensive piece of equipment for the 3 weeks. But pretty much everyone brings at least something, at least a cell phone or an iPod or something like that, maybe a hairdryer. What we recommend is to look at the plug of each device that you plan on bringing with you and see what voltage range it uses. In the United States, it's usually around 110, the voltage, and there'll be a range around that the device will support. A lot of modern electronics, such as computers and iPhones, will have an incorporated transformer so that they can work up to 220 or 240 volts, which is the current in Vietnam. Other things like hair dryers, which may not be worth bringing, but things like that or older electronics often will only work on U.S. current. So if you plug it into Vietnam, into the outlet with double the voltage, it will instantly be fried with a little puff of smoke maybe. It's happened to me before, and you definitely want to look at that beforehand. If there is something like that you want to bring that only works on American voltage, you definitely need to go out and buy a transformer, which will take the Vietnamese voltage and lower that to the American voltage so that the devices will work safely without being damaged. The outlets themselves in Vietnam tend to accommodate, the standard plug in Vietnam is 2 round prongs, similar to what you would find in most countries in Europe. A lot of their outlets have holes for the 2 round prongs and the 2 flat American prongs. So a lot of outlets accommodate American devices. And if they do have that incorporated transformer allowing them to work up to 220 volts, then you can charge up that iPod or a laptop if you happen to bring that. However, it's not guaranteed that you'll have that everywhere. Some outlets just have the 2 round prongs. So you may want to bring a couple kinds of adapters. One is the adapter that will convert not current, it just changes the form of the plug. You put it on the end of your plug, and instead of having your 2 flat prongs will go into it, and it will have 2 round prongs coming out that will work in any Vietnamese outlet. That's important. The other thing that may be important is to bring one that converts a 3-pronged American plug into a 2-pronged American plug. Most computers have 3 prongs, but that 3rd prong does not fit most Vietnamese outlets. Even if they do have space for the 2 flat American plugs, it won't have space for that 3rd one. So those are the 2 adapters I would recommend bringing. And of course, look into if you need any transformers, which don't just change the shape of the plug, but also convert the electricity. This next slide talks about several of the things that I already mentioned. I will say, bring 1 suitcase. Look at your airline's luggage restrictions. Several of you are flying on different airlines, and they might have different restrictions, and those do change from time to time. So look up for your itinerary, your destination, what those restrictions are. Generally, airlines will allow you to fly to Asia with 1 suitcase up to 50 pounds, and then 1 carry-on. Again, we recommend not overpacking, also because we have a 20-passenger bus, which is on the small side, and we don't have a lot of room for luggage. So not bringing a massive jumbo suitcase would be advantageous for packing and transport while we're on site, and I don't think you will necessarily need to bring so much. Having something like a backpack, an empty backpack that you can bring in your luggage or use as a carry-on could be useful as we go out on the weekends or something like that. It could be convenient for carrying a water bottle and a few other necessities, snacks during the day. And whatever you do bring, if you don't have it at home, at the airport at least, please put on labels with your name and address so that if perchance your luggage didn't arrive with your plane, got delayed in transit, it will be easily recognizable and it'll be easy to figure out, make sure it's yours and get it back to us soon. At the bottom, you have a list of various electronics that some people bring. I definitely don't recommend bringing a whole array of every kind of technology under the sun. You'll be in Vietnam for 3.5 weeks, and while it might be a bit of an adjustment to not be on Facebook all the time, there are a lot of other things to focus on and learn, and it's kind of nice to have a break from being always plugged in. And at most sites, we won't necessarily have ready internet access like you might be used to on a college campus. So do bring what you do think you would be interested in, but certainly all these things are not necessary. I will say that batteries, while you can find those anywhere, even out in remote villages, they tend to not be name brand ones that you would find in the States and don't have the same durability as American ones. They discharge much faster, and I've found in my camera that if I plug them in, they often will only work for maybe 30 seconds or a minute and then be done. They don't have the power to run a camera. So if your camera takes AA batteries that are not rechargeable, I would bring a few extra from the States. Certainly bring a camera. Of course, if it's a really expensive single lens reflex, you might want to think twice about it. But having a camera of some kind is certainly something that most people enjoy. There are lots of new friends and new places that we enjoy taking pictures of, so we can share a little bit more with our friends back home so that they can have a better image of what we've been doing. And of course, a lot of people decorate their dorm room the next year with pictures of all the kids, and I've heard several people that say you walk in, it's like walking into camp again. All the pictures are all over the wall. So that's definitely something that most people value. Regarding medicines, many of the things you see here we do provide on site. We have at each campsite we have a wide range of over-the-counter medications, some of which we've brought from the United States, many of which we've bought locally in Vietnam. So Band-Aids, disinfectant, painkillers, anti-nausea medication, things like that. We have those on site. It's not uncommon for someone, be it a Vietnamese coach, an American coach, or some of the kids to have some small cuts, bruises, feel a little sick one day. So we do want to have a lot of those available readily right there wherever we are at all times. And so the program does provide those, but it's not necessarily a bad idea or uncommon for a lot of the coaches to bring a few things as well. I don't think you all need to have half your suitcase be a pharmacy, like I've traveled sometimes in the past on my own. But some of these things, particularly if you're traveling on your own after or before camp, it would be a good idea to bring several of these things for yourself as well. The personal care products are maybe the ones that are more important to make sure you do bring. While things like razors and shampoo are very easy to find in Vietnam as well, if there are things you do know you'll need, and particularly if there's a specific product that you are used to using and want to have, it makes more sense to just bring that with you already. Deodorant is also available. I see that there, but often not with antiperspirant in Vietnam. And while they do have pads and other feminine care products, tampons usually are not something that are known in Vietnam or easy to find. The other thing I would highly recommend from this list is bringing hand sanitizer. One of the best ways to avoid illness and sickness is to clean our hands well from time to time. And when we're out in the camp with kids, there might not be a lot of soap or running water. So having hand sanitizer you can easily disinfect your hands rapidly before eating a snack or at various intervals throughout the day can be very, very effective and useful. So I would definitely include that with what you bring. Mosquito spray, I've already said, definitely bring that, and sunscreen. Those are the top ones. It does say toilet paper. We do provide toilet paper on camp. You'll have it in your rooms. We'll have plenty of it. When we are out and about traveling, it's always useful to bring several squares rolled up in a pocket of our backpack or something, just in case we are out and where there are public toilets and where there likely would not be toilet paper. But I don't think you necessarily need to bring a whole roll with you unless you are, again, traveling at the end of camp. But again, that's very easy to find and buy in Vietnam as well. Next, let's move on to clothing, what to wear. That's a question that commonly gets asked. Most of our time will be in the camps from Monday through Friday, and so we'll be under the hot sun half of that time. Half will be in the classroom, half will be outside, but we'll be getting sweaty, dusty, participating in drills with the kids. So we definitely want something light and comfortable. I recommend shorts. Vietnamese tend to wear pants often, especially the women, partially for modesty, partially because the paler you are, the better. You definitely want to avoid a suntan if you're a Vietnamese woman. So they'll wear long sports pants. You can certainly do that, but we do think that in this context, shorts are appropriate. The longer, the better. Certainly avoid skimpy shorts if possible, or skin-tight ones. So a little bit looser fitting and longer. The more you err in that direction, or not err, but the more you go in that direction, the better it is, the more appropriate it will be. In terms of T-shirts, Coach for College will provide one T-shirt that we worn Monday and Wednesday, a Coach for College shirt that all the coaches will wear, so a bit like a uniform. And then on competition day on Friday, you'll wear a different t-shirt, and you'll wear a t-shirt of the same color as your kids. Each of you will be on a different team teaching life skills to one group of kids and following them in competition day. So if you're on the green team, you'll be wearing your green t-shirt and coaching, let's say, your group of kids throughout the competitions that day. The other 2 days, Tuesday and Thursday, you'll be wearing, along with the Vietnamese coaches, and everyone will be wearing a university t-shirt from their own university. Partially, this is to represent with the pride you have in your own university to everyone, and partly also to remind kids that you are college students. You're not just fun people here to have fun with them, but you're people who value education, are pursuing your college education, just kind of to reinforce that with them. So we recommend bringing 2 or 3 of those from your university with your university logo on it, and make sure that they are in good condition. And don't bring your old tattered jersey that you've been wearing in practice for 3 years. It has holes in it. You're still in a position of authority and responsibility, and Vietnamese do dress less formally than Americans, less informally, less casually than Americans, and take a lot of pride in their appearance. So while we don't want you to bring your favorite expensive Armani jacket or something like that, we definitely also want to make sure that it's all good-looking apparel. For women also, generally anything you have with at least short sleeves is good. Spaghetti straps are definitely something that shouldn't be worn. And if you do have something that's more like a tank top, it should at least have wide shoulder, basically the whole shoulder covered to the edge of the shoulder. Just out of propriety, Vietnamese are much more conservative in their dress than Americans are, even though in the big cities some of that is changing. But again, we're in the countryside, and we definitely want to give a good impression, not one that might be construed in a way very different than what we think we're communicating with our dress. On the weekend, again, we can dress casually. Often Vietnamese would wear pants in the city. If you do, make sure it's something lightweight. Dresses are fine for women. Sundress, something lightweight and comfortable again. But often people enjoy maybe dressing a little nicer to go out to eat on the weekend. So I leave that a little bit up to you. They're very forgiving. They know we're foreigners, so we can wear what we want. But maybe something that's a little bit nicer than just athletic shorts for the weekend would be good. Depending on our destination, of course. At the beach, we can do something different. So of course, a swimsuit is okay. Vietnamese women do cover up both for modesty and to keep the sun off. In fact, on the beaches at noon, you won't find anyone in Vietnam. They all come out toward the evening when the sun isn't as strong. But a few Vietnamese women do wear swimming suits, and it is usually a one-piece full swimming suit. So that's just to give you a context. They do understand, and I think it is okay to wear a two-piece swimming suit. So, don't feel free to not go out and buy a new swimming suit. But again, overall, modesty, it's a little tricky. I'm not a woman, but most countries in the world tend to dress more modestly than we do in the United States. So it's kind of a fine balance, a mix of finding the balance between our own comfort and realizing we are foreign, we don't have to adapt 100% to local norms, but also being respectful at the same time. Pajamas, something like that. Our rooms usually will have air conditioning, not in every case, but generally, and it might not always work super well, but it can. Often the air conditioning gets turned up fairly high, and then when it's blowing on you in the middle of the night, once you've cooled down, you might get kind of cold. So having some pajamas to cover up might be useful. Having one pair of or one set of something long sleeved might be good. A long sleeve shirt, in case it does get cool in an evening or something like that, or if it rains. But that's not necessarily mandatory. Certainly a pair of athletic shoes for during the camps. You'll want to be training probably, and you'll be working with kids. Sandals and flip-flops are quite worn in Vietnam. So those are definitely a good thing and are good to bring with you because, especially for guys, I'm 6 foot and I cannot usually find shoes or sandals that are big enough for me. Vietnamese tend to be smaller stature. So it's definitely good to bring those with you. It does mention here nice shoes and a raincoat. I think that might be going a little bit overboard. It does rain. It is during the rainy season, but it is hot. So if we do get wet, then we dry out. Bringing a large, bulky raincoat might be a little overkill. but maybe a small poncho you can fold up could be useful. And in terms of dressing up, that depends a little bit on you. If you want to dress nicely on the weekend, you can, but it doesn't have to be overly formal or anything. Just sometimes we enjoy changing it up a little bit from our sweaty existence during the middle of the week. The box there in the bottom right is a question I often get about laundry. So each of the guest houses do usually, they will wash laundry for us if we want. Sometimes by machine, sometimes by hand, but it's something extra that you would have to pay for. It's relatively inexpensive, but we many people often end up washing their own clothes. It's usually buckets or basins that we provide. So either at lunch or in the evening, we often gather around, several of us who have laundry to do, and wash out our T-shirts that we wore that day and a few other things. So it can be a mix. Laundry detergent is very easy to find there in any setting. Vietnamese are dressed very, very well, even in the village, and are very cleanly, bathe once or twice, usually at least twice a day, and wash their clothes regularly. So it's very easy to find powdered detergent at any site. This slide has more of an overview of other general things you might think about bringing. Again, there are a couple that have maybe been mentioned already, but let me go over a few of them. One is an ATM card. A credit card really is not very useful in Vietnam. If you're traveling afterwards, it might be in other countries, but generally in Southeast Asia, credit cards are not accepted very many places unless they're more high-end hotels, potentially some travel agents. Or if you're buying a ticket online or something like that for travel afterwards, you would want maybe a credit card. But ATMs are available in many places in Vietnam and other countries in the region, and it's easily the most convenient way for obtaining Vietnamese or local currency if you're in another country as well. You would want to call for both of those, ATM and credit card, call your bank before you leave and tell them, I'll be traveling from this date to this date. These are the countries I'll be in. I'll be in Vietnam, so they will make a note of that so that the card doesn't get suspended and that it keeps working while you're in Vietnam. Otherwise, they might think the card's been stolen because you've never been to Vietnam before, and they see that activity, and it could the card could be swallowed by the machine, or more likely they'd spit it back out, but the card would be put on hold, and you would have to find a way to call from Vietnam, the credit card company in the United States, and let them know everything's okay. So definitely let them know. I always recommend bringing some cash as well. You never know when you do lose your credit card or it doesn't work for some reason, or your debit card. So make sure to bring some cash, medium and small denominations as well. Sometimes people will accept dollars, not usually in Vietnam, but some other countries they do at times. So it is possible to change U.S. dollars, but Vietnam, they generally want very nice, good bills. So don't bring that old wrinkled one that's fading, that has a couple scribbles on it, that has a partial tear on one side. Definitely try to bring newer bills. And how much you bring is up to you. No, I wouldn't bring a large amount because there is the risk then of it getting lost or stolen, but maybe $50 to $100. I will send you more information, but you will need to bring U.S. dollars in cash to pay for your visa when you arrive, which I will then reimburse to you in Vietnamese money when you come through customs. But before you go through passport control, you will have to pay for that visa, which has been $45. That does change from time to time, but make sure you bring $45 in cash plus some extra later on, as I said, maybe an extra $40, $50 or more for other expenses in case your ATM might not work. Some of these other things are fairly optional. We did suggest snack food and Gatorade powder, especially the Gatorade powder we recommend fairly highly. Many of the other, and a water bottle. You're definitely going to want to use a water bottle. Some of the other ones are a little more optional, such as books that you might want to read, games, card games, something small, not a big board game, but we're sitting around in the evening and if a few people bring some card games, bananagrams, something like that, it's often been fun to incorporate the Vietnamese coaches into that and do something fun on the weekends or in the evening. I do definitely recommend a money belt or something like that. Bag snatching and pickpocketing is fairly common in a lot of parts of the world, including Vietnam, in the cities particularly. So we don't want to be keeping our passport, all our documents, and a large amount of cash in a small purse or bag that we're just swinging over our arm. That is they cite foreigners have stepped off the plane immediately. The people who are in that kind of business and know how to take it. So if it's under the clothes and something either you hang around your neck or some sort of money belt that you can put under your shirt, under your pants, then it's much, much safer. We won't during the camps, that won't be much of an issue when we can keep things in our room, and that should be safe since we're renting out the guest house, and we've never had any issues there. But on the weekends and on the city when you land, that would be times that you might be interested in a money belt. It's definitely a good investment for travel in general, in my opinion. You could bring an umbrella, but again, I think that might not really be necessary unless it's a small folding one, and you could pick one up there as well if you wanted to, if you realize it's raining a lot and you would like one. I do recommend a top sheet for the bed. The bedding is usually a bottom sheet, a fitted sheet, and a blanket, and maybe one big blanket for a double bed. So while it is warm there with the air conditioning on, it's often nice to have a little something. A blanket might be too much for you, but sleeping without anything might be a little hard, and it could get a little cool with the air blowing on you. So having a top sheet, which is not something that is normally used in Vietnam, that they're very aware of, that they in their tradition, could be a useful thing. I do recommend bringing a towel. Many of the guest houses do not provide towels, so bring a small one. Don't bring some massive big one. It's warm there, so we dry pretty rapidly anyway, but you don't want to take up half your suitcase with a massive beach towel, but it would be nice to bring a medium-sized towel with you. Many coaches enjoy journaling, so bringing a small notebook to journal and record your impressions, your thoughts, what you're feeling could be something rewarding, something very interesting to read back through later and see how your impressions changed over time, or in later years when you're thinking back to these meaningful weeks in Vietnam, going back and kind of revisiting and feeling again some of the same things you did. So it's certainly not mandatory, but encouraged. Or, small gifts to bring to Vietnamese coaches. They often will give us some sort of gift souvenir. We've become friends and they want to leave something from themselves to remember them by. So thinking of something that we can do as well to give back to them at the end of camp is something that usually we're happy to have done. It's harder to figure that out once we're already in Vietnam. They often make things, some sort of craft or something like that. But one thing that often works well is to bring a T-shirt or two from your university. They've seen us wear our own T-shirts, and to bring them something like that is usually something that's personal from us that they appreciate and enjoy wearing later on to remember us by. Do remember, though, that Vietnamese tend to be small and compared to Americans, and so most of them wear small and medium. Usually they don't get much larger than that. There are a few guys that do get bigger, but more than half our coaches are female and on the smaller side. So, yeah, smalls and mediums are probably the better way to go. And if each person brings a couple T-shirts, you don't have to bring T-shirts or shorts or something like that. You don't have to bring it for all the coaches. But if each of you brings one or two things, then we have enough to easily cover all the Vietnamese friends that we've made, all the coaches. In terms of for the kids, I definitely recommend printing out some photos of yourself. This can be done in Vietnam as well, but if you can do it in the United States, it's one less thing we have to do there. Something like a yearbook picture, or even better, a picture of you in uniform or something like that, or even an action shot of you playing would be something. And bringing several of those, not just one or two, but at least enough for your two teams of kids, maybe 15 in the morning, 15 in the evening, and often there might be some other kids you want to give some of those to. And that's something that you will find meaningful, and certainly the kids will, and it's easy to write a note on the back or something like that. And I have recommended, I believe, before in one of these other presentations, but maybe making a few video clips of yourself or your team just to kind of show what the sport is. If it's no one has any idea what lacrosse is, for example, so showing the stick, showing how you pass, how you cradle, showing a shot on goal, maybe some of the drills you do in whatever sport you participate in. That'll be something that both the kids and the coaches will, and myself as well, will enjoy watching as you explain your sport and talk about your team. And those could be brought on a flash drive or on a phone if your phone has that capability, or potentially uploaded to YouTube. though it might be more of a challenge to find, to be able to show that at the schools themselves where there isn't wireless. Make sure also, it says that note at the bottom is important. Anything valuable, whether it be your prescriptions, your camera, any other technology, money, documents, make sure to bring that in your carry-on or on your person. Everything you put in your suitcase it probably, almost for sure, it will all come through. But if it's something valuable, there's just a chance that might not come. So whenever you travel anywhere in the world, I highly recommend bringing anything that you really care about and you really can't replace and that someone might be tempted to take. Bring that with you in your carry-on. Of course, liquids in bottles above a certain size are not able to be brought as a carry-on anymore, so those will have to be checked. This next list has a few things that you should not be bringing. Most of them are relatively obvious, but don't bring alcohol or drugs. Don't bring anything that constitutes a weapon in your carry-on. And, after 9/11, you've all flown, that it's pretty restrictive. So nothing sharp, nothing with a blade, anything like that would have to go in your checked baggage. In terms of Vietnam, don't bring anything that looks military as well. Not that you probably would, but that could be something sensitive where it's still a one-party system and there's a police and military presence around the country. And in general, there's a higher risk than when you stay at home that you might lose something, that it might get broken. So that goes for your clothing and also any kind of technology or other devices that you might bring. Of course, if you're careful, hopefully everything will go all right, but bear in mind that there is a risk there. So if it's something you're particularly attached to or that is particularly expensive that you wouldn't be able to replace, you might want to consider leaving that at home. That concludes the part of the presentation that talks about what to pack and what to bring. It should give you a pretty good overview, but if you have any specific questions, definitely feel free to ask, and we can always put you in touch with past participants as well if you want to ask any specific questions of them from their experiences. The rest of this presentation gives a few more details. We want to put you a little bit more in the mindset of arriving in Vietnam. Up until now, it may have seemed something very distant and abstract far in the future, but if you're listening to this in a couple weeks before you leave, it's coming up really quickly, and you won't know until you land what it's going to be like. You can't really prepare until you've seen it. It's such a different place, and those first few days will really be interesting to see all the things you never expected that you might see or find fascinating. And so we also just want to kind of help you start imagining what your days will be like and thinking about that as you prepare to leave. So this just gives a little bit of an overview of the schedule throughout the camp to help you just start thinking about where you're going to be in the next several days when you land in Vietnam. So depending on the itinerary, there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, people will be landing in Ho Chi Minh City on Thursday, leaving probably on Wednesday, landing on Thursday, depending on where you're coming from. But we'll be there to pick you up at the airport. You'll be receiving specific instructions on how to meet us, what to do in any kind of situation if there are any kind of issues along the way, such as your luggage doesn't arrive, or you'll have that printed out, and we'll email that to you. So you'll be landing Thursday. Then we have a buffer day on Friday, just in case, as like I said, someone were to miss a connection or their luggage might not arrive and we have to wait till the next day to pick it up. So Friday, we'll have some time to sleep in, kind of get it acclimated, adjusted. I'll bring you around, show you around Ho Chi Minh City, maybe bring you to the Vietnam War Museum, maybe poke around a market, have your first taste of Vietnamese food. The zoo is actually pretty popular with past coaches, and then even just crossing the street and walking down and just seeing what houses and buildings and everyday life looks like is pretty interesting. So that'll be very relaxed and unstructured as you rest up from your long flight. And then Saturday we'll head off to the campsites. We'll either go south into the Mekong Delta if you're in one of those camps, or we'll head north to central Vietnam in Da Nang if your camps will be located in that place. So we'll go there Saturday. We'll meet up, either pick up or meet up with the Vietnamese coaches, depending on where they're coming from. And so that'll be exciting and a little shyness-inducing, both for you and them at first. So we'll maybe do some things to break the ice and get people on friendly terms right off the bat and laughing and joking. And then Sunday, we'll have orientation in the morning with all the coaches, Vietnamese and Americans. So there are several different sessions talking about health, safety, giving you the schedule for the camp, distributing T-shirts, giving you your lesson plans, giving you tips about what works, what doesn't, how to work together with each other, with the two as a group, teaching and coaching as a group. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, we'll actually go to the schools, and it's registration time for the kids, and we'll have a orientation with them, which you guys will also take part in, introducing ourselves, starting to learn their names, coming up with a team name for your team, doing maybe playing a few games and doing some team bonding activities just to get things rolling before the actual first day of camp. And then in the evening, you'll have your first lesson plans. You'll have your lesson, you'll meet with your group, and you'll read through it and figure out who's going to teach what. And that first one's going to be tough. It's going to be a little longer and take some time because you haven't done this before. But it rapidly, by the second or third lesson planning time, partway through the next week, it'll already be going much faster and much more smoothly. And then the rest of the time, you'll of the camp from Monday through Thursday, you'll be teaching and coaching. Friday, you'll have competition day, which is a lot of fun. It's high energy. The kids really get into it. So do the coaches. So you will be tired at the end of the day, but it is a lot of fun. Then the weekend, we'll have a weekend excursion, which will change depending on which site you're at. Our excursions involve visiting different cities. If you're either a historic city, or if we're in the countryside, going to a big city nearby, maybe touring the Vietnamese campus with the Vietnamese coaches, shopping, restaurants, and also we combine either part of a weekend or one of the weekends. We will also have some relaxing time on the coast at beaches. We'll let you know when you get there, but each site has slightly different weekend activities, but they're enjoyed across the board, and they'll be both interesting, relaxing, and fun. Week 2 is similar to week 1. Often there can be a little bit of lull in energy. We've gotten over the initial excitement, and we're starting to get a little fatigued. And just like in sports, you have to kind of keep going and fight through that, persevere, just as we teach the kids. And usually we'll come out of that after a couple of days and kind of find our form again and keep going well through camp. We have our second weekend excursion, which is always different than the first weekend. Again, varying depending on where you are. Then we go into the final week, which is again teaching Monday through Thursday. And then we'll have a day and a half competition day. We'll have all day Friday and then Saturday morning competitions. And generally the plan is hopefully in the Saturday afternoon to be able to go visit the houses of one or two of the kids. They really enjoy showing us around. We might ride bikes to their house or walk on the paths they walk, meet their parents, maybe eat some snacks, see where they live. And that's really a special time, both for the kids to, the pride they have in showing us where they live, and that we're honoring them by coming to their house, and also for us to really get a glimpse that not very many people do. This is a kid that we've come to love over the 3 weeks with that sweet smile and glimmer in his eye, and then you're actually seeing inside, wow, this is where he grew up, this is his family, and that's pretty unique and stays with us for a while. Then on Sunday, we'll have the award ceremony. The winning teams are announced. We give out prizes to the top 3 students grade-wise over the camp in academics, the top 3 in life skills. Prizes also for most improved students. Give each student certificates of participation. And then, of course, goodbyes. That's a poignant moment, special, not always easy. It's sad in a good way. To be saying goodbye, and we often realize it really hits home how much our contributions and we've meant to the kids, that they really value what we've given them in our relationship, and it's hard for them to say goodbye to us, and it's pretty hard for us to say goodbye to them. Often we're surprised by the strength of that bond that is formed on both sides, how much we feel that toward the kids and how much they feel that toward us, and I think that's a really important, special part of the program. It's not the easiest part, but it really cements that, wow, this is something that is really fun, important to life. There's something real here that goes beyond the superficial things that I worry about or and think about every day, and it's definitely a special memory and impacts me and the coaches as well, almost universally. And then we leave, say goodbye. We might travel with Vietnamese coaches part way and split off, drop them off in various places. Some of you have the option. You've chosen to travel on your own after camp before returning at a later date. If not, you'll be heading back to the United States for the long flight home and lots of stories to share with your family. So that's what your 3.5 weeks will look like, and it'll be ups and downs and lots of excitement and lots of things you can't imagine yet that you'll be learning. And you'll be a different person when you step on the plane. Be like, wow, there's a whole new part of me and a whole new part of the world. There's a place where I can function and is part of me now that I couldn't even imagine right at this moment while you're looking through these slides. Next, touching on behavioral expectations, we'll also go over this in orientation. Most things are common sense, where this is a responsible position, and we are role models, and we are in a foreign country, so we have to observe the laws and norms of that country, and it's important that we represent our country and our school well. And we have in a position of responsibility with the children, so we certainly want to not take that lightly and realize that similarly to a parent, the kids are always seeing what that person is doing that they look up to and are absorbing a lot of things. So even in our free time and downtime, we want to make sure we're impacting them in a positive way and setting very positive examples. So generally, follow the honor code of your university and standards like you would anywhere else. But in general, let's even try to raise it a little lower. We all know that in college campuses, the behavior is not always exemplary of all students. There's certainly things that go on that are not always safe or that we are necessarily proud of in general in the college community. So I just want to encourage all of us to really be in our best behavior. This camp is work. Think of it as a job, as an internship, one that is meaningful, impactful, and that you will enjoy, but certainly one that is a commitment and a responsibility that you're taking. We'll learn a lot. We'll have fun. We'll get to go to really interesting places, but it's not just a vacation. We're here to serve and to learn and to follow the schedule. So just want to prepare you mentally for that. Of course, we're in Vietnam, so we want to be sensitive, be open to the Vietnamese culture and customs and what's appropriate and what's not. Some of that will be a little different from the United States, so just be attuned to that. Finally, certainly do not consume any illegal drugs. Those aren't legal, and punishments can be much harsher in Southeast Asia than they are in the United States. And of course, they are in no way a safe activity to take part in. So obviously, we don't want you to dabble in any of that. And in terms of alcohol, the legal drinking age in Vietnam is 18. So it is legal to drink for all of you since you're of age. The policy of the camp, though, is to not consume alcohol during the week. So Sunday evening through Friday afternoon when we're involved with the kids. Again, partially because we're setting an example, also because it is important to get good sleep and not stay up late and to focus on the planning the lessons and things like that. Drinking alcoholic beverages is definitely permitted on the weekends. We're fine with that. But we very much encourage that it be very responsible and consuming just for pleasure. If you want to have a couple drinks with your meal, that's fine. Middle of the day or evening, you want to have a cocktail or something like that. We don't have any problem with that. But again, we're all in a very responsible position, and we really want to avoid any excess. So the policy is that drunkenness and intoxication is not allowed. So definitely consume alcohol in moderation on the weekend, and let's try to keep it not be the central element of our fun. We're in a very fascinating place with a lot of different things to do and explore and learn with fun people, and I really believe we can have a really fun time without making alcohol the central element around which we spend our free time. I certainly don't want you to hide it. Feel free to any alcohol you consume it openly in front of everyone, but just keep it low. Take into account also that Vietnamese often are not able to drink as much alcohol as Americans before becoming drunk. And the biggest reason for these policies are are for your own benefit, to enjoy maximally the camps, perform at your best level, and to be safe is the biggest part. Dehydration is one of our biggest issues with camp. in terms of health, and so alcohol is something that does dehydrate and can tax your system and lead to being more susceptible to other kind of sicknesses. We've had cases in the past of alcohol being consumed in excess and that being combined with other health problems at the same time, creating some pretty unpleasant situations. And certainly, if you look at a college campus, 95% of the problems that happen, whether it be injuries or sexual assault or any other problems like that, are caused by alcohol, excess alcohol consumption. And that's something really for 3.5 weeks in Vietnam we want to avoid. We're in a different country. There are different risks. There are different standards, different medical care, and we really want to avoid serious problems. So for these 3.5 weeks, let's have fun and drink, but in moderation. And I think everybody will have a good time that way and really enjoy it. And I really appreciate your even though it might be a little different. Some people might really embrace that, and other people it might not be exactly how they would want to approach their free time on the weekends. But I really do appreciate your cooperation and buying into that vision of the camp, and I thank you in advance for that. This slide has contact information for myself and my Vietnamese counterpart in Vietnam. Your parents might likely be very interested in this information. You have my number and my email address there. I'll have fairly regular access to email if your parents need it, and I will have a cell phone, which should be accessible 24 hours a day. That number is my number that I had this past summer, and there is a chance that will have been deactivated due to disuse over a long period of time over this winter. If that does change, I will communicate by email to you the new number, but likely that one will be working. And your parents can feel free to call at any time with any kind of emergency, any concerns, and I'm very happy to talk to them at any point in the camp. I do want to remind that the time zone difference is 11 hours ahead from the East Coast. So if it's noon on the East Coast of the United States, it's 11 p.m. in Vietnam. If it's noon in the central region of the United States, in Chicago, for example, it's going to be midnight in Vietnam. So while I'm perfectly willing to talk to parents in the middle of the night, I would ask that they only call after, let's say, 10 p.m. Vietnamese time. We go to bed on the early side there. So after 10 p.m. and before 6 a.m., that only be in the case of an emergency. And if it's something else that they can wait until the next day, I would, of course, prefer that. But generally, I'm there to make sure that everything goes well with you and to connect you with parents if there are any issues. My counterpart, Aitam, on the right, she has been involved with the program for a number of years. She was a Vietnamese coach, quite enthusiastic about the program, saw different ways that the program could improve, started volunteering with us, has been hired, and this will be her third summer working with the program. And she helps a lot with many of the logistics behind the scenes as we speak, setting up, renting the buses, the guest houses, the equipment, all the bureaucracy that has to be navigated there. And she's very committed to the program. And there is also her contact information. She speaks very good English. So if for some reason your parents were not able to contact me, they can certainly feel free to contact her as well by email or phone. Here it gives a little bit of overview of expenses. I've probably talked with most of you about this before. The program will cover most of your expenses, lodging, food, transport, your airplane tickets and visas and such. Of course, you know that already. So you can really get by without spending much in Vietnam. But there are a few things you will spend some money on. Most people like to buy some extra snacks. I've already mentioned, I think, the tropical fruit smoothies, frozen yogurts, several other different snacks that they have in Vietnam that don't exist in the United States. And then on the weekend, often we give depending on the location and the meal, but generally we give you cash to cover a basic meal, a regular meal. But many people want to maybe splurge on the weekend, go out to a little fancier restaurant, order that more expensive entree or something like that. And so often people supplement what we give them and buy something a little more expensive. So you might want to bring some money for that. And then there are laundry there, it says. The majority of people do it themselves, but a good number of people do pay for that. So a few dollars for that as well. And there on the weekends there can be some extra expenses. Depending on the location, there are some historic sites we go in that require a ticket, which the program doesn't cover. It's not mandatory, of course, to participate and go, but they are usually pretty interesting, and they're about $4 or $5 for foreigners per ticket. And there are a few other things. One location, there are some caves you might go to have a tour of, and it's $1 or $2 a person. Massages are very popular, about $10 for a 1 hour massage. That usually goes over quite well with the American coaches. And the Vietnamese also often might want to take us out to something, either at one location. We can go out early in the morning on a boat and visit a floating market. So we'd have to rent the boat for that. Again, not too expensive, just $2-3 a person maybe. And karaoke is a similar cost. Generally in Vietnam, you rent a room and you choose your songs, and it's just your group in the room. So we usually all chip in to rent that room for an hour or two in the evening for some very typical Vietnamese fun. So definitely those things can add up, a few souvenirs that you want to bring back. But the majority of things we will cover. This slide gives a list of various ideas about reflection, about our experiences. We'll be bombarded from the beginning with new sensations, new perceptions, new ideas, new thoughts. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, and we're always active on the go as well. But to really get a lot out of the program, I think it's important both during the program and as well on the way home and once you've arrived home to be really thinking and processing what you're going through. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? Look at how they're doing that thing different in Vietnam. Why do I like that? Why does that bother me? Kind of understanding it really helps understand both what we're seeing, but also understand ourselves, where we're coming from, kind of view some of the things we value differently and realize things about ourselves we didn't know before. And helps adapt as well. There are lots of different levels on which reflection is good at any point in life, and this is a period of your lives where you'll have probably one of the higher densities of new experiences and things to think about. So finding ways that work for you to take some time by yourself. It might be a walk off by yourself, go in a quiet place for a while and think. It might be a lot of people journal, bringing a journal and writing. It might be blogging or doing it digitally and then uploading it later on the weekends. Just to kind of help go through, don't just experience it, but think about it. Talking about it is a great thing. In the evening, sitting around, talking about what we've gone through today, wondering out loud about why these things are done this way in Vietnam that we weren't expecting, and kind of helping see things from other people, the people we're talking with in our group. Someone else might see something or perceive something differently than the way I do, and that often helps me to kind of get an inside view of their view of what's going on. So there are lots of different ways, and I just encourage that in general throughout the camp. And I really love cultures and languages and these differences and relationships and these dynamics. So at any point, I'm certainly going to be easily roped into a conversation, talking and processing these things with you. But certainly a lot of that happens on your own as well. So here we are at the end of all these slides. It's been quite a few. I thank you for going through them and listening with me. This just has kind of a last-minute checklist of some of the most important things. Read through these. Make sure you've done these, printed these things. You'll see the third point there is a visa acceptance letter. If I haven't sent you an email about that yet, when you see this, basically I will be applying for your visa ahead of time with Vietnamese Immigration, and they will provide a letter, a PDF of a letter saying that your name, your passport number, the expiration date have been approved for a visa to enter Vietnam. And you'll carry that with you, show it to the airline so that they allow you to board when you leave the United States. And when you arrive, you'll show that. In Vietnam, you'll pay them an added fee above and beyond what I've paid already. And they will give you the actual visa stamp, visa sticker, put it on your passport. Then you'll go through, they'll stamp your passport. You'll come out, and you'll be good to go in Vietnam. And I will reimburse you for that fee that you will have paid there. And do read through the details that I will send you by email about that, in terms of what to bring and how to fill out the various forms they'll have you fill out there. They do ask for one, often two passport photos, so definitely bring a couple, particularly if you're traveling in other countries in the region. For example, Cambodia does require 2 photos as well when you enter their country. So bring a few extra if necessary. And print up your itinerary, print up the detailed email that I will send you about a week before departure, about, as I mentioned earlier, every step along the way flying. If anything were to go wrong, or if you had any questions at any step along the way, this is my suggestions on how to handle the situation, how to contact me, where to meet you once you've gone through customs, exactly where. If for some reason you didn't see me right where I've said I am, I have 2 or 3 backups, and so it's very clear. And if in any kind of contingency, it will be very easy to make sure you're safe and get where you need to be going. But yeah, I've always been there to pick everyone up. We've never needed any of those backup plans, but those are all there printed up, just in case you were to need anything like that. So I think that's all we have. Finish up packing. Keep your suitcase lighter, I encourage, rather than overdoing it, or filling it up with snacks or food or something like that you will consume, so you have less when you come back. And I always double and triple check before I leave it, those essential things, I have them. I don't want to have it out on my desk and head to the airport and get there and realize, man, my passport's sitting back on my desk, or that visa letter. Because if you don't have that visa letter and that passport, you won't be able to get on the plane. You won't be able to get in Vietnam. So that could be a major hitch in your plans if that were to happen. And of course, any vital things like prescribed medicines or something like that you need, those are important. So always double check those right before you head out the door, or as you're in the car on the way to the airport. And that's all we have. And next stop, Vietnam. I'll be there to pick you up and get ready for a summer of service, excitement, new relationships, and lots of great stories when you come back, and making a difference in a bunch of kids' lives that won't forget the summer anytime soon. I look forward to meeting you there. Bye.